I mentioned this is my friend Jim Cornell. He works with me at Healthcare Services Corporation, and he is basically the guru for cyber forensics. And he's going to tell you about cyber forensics and what's involved, and basically talk about your background, stuff you've done, and more importantly, how you go about getting into cyber forensics. And so, want to take away?
Sure.
I'll just have a seat here.
And let me just make a small correction here.
Did I spell your name wrong?
Nope.
Oh, good.
Everybody on the planet calls me Jim, or they call me Race.
Sorry.
It depends on where you learned about me, where we met, as far as which of these two you use. You guys can use Jim. You can use Race if you want. I don't care. And I'll tell you the story behind Race in a little bit. So let me get started and explain to you my background so you have a little bit of scope as far as what you can ask me about. And let me tell you that I have been doing this a long time, okay? When I started doing computers, PCs didn't exist. My grandfather, when I was 6 years old, started teaching me electronics. Literally, resistors, wires, chips didn't exist. I learned on vacuum tubes. Yes, I'm really that old. More to the point, technology's not that old. You know, I remember building my first computer from a set of instructions in a magazine in the late 70s, because it was the only way I could get one. Literally, got some chips, got some wire, built a computer. It had 10 LEDs, 10 switches, and you toggled 8 bits in at a time to program it. It had 256 bytes of memory. If you'd like to know what that is, try this. Open up WordPad, Word, whatever you've got that you like to type on your computer, and type 40 letters, doesn't matter what they are, make it all A's, whatever. Copy and paste that until you get 256. You will not fill an 8.5 by 11 page. That's how much memory I had in my first computer. And we did a lot with it, because you had to back then. Who knows where the term hacker originated? It's not a pop quiz, you're not going to get grilled on it, I'm just curious.
It's yours. You should know this, guys.
We're not.
We're over there. You should know this.
Oh, see, this is what we
Okay, so let me tell you. Originally, the word hacker was a venerated term. That was telling somebody you were cool, because you would hack away at a program to make it as small as possible so it would run in the limited memory we had back then. So hacker was a great term. Pirates were the bad guys. They were the ones copying things, stealing stuff left and right. And then what you don't find in a lot of history books was a CNN reporter, yeah, I said it out loud, a CNN reporter did an interview about these guys that broke into a bank and stole some stuff. And when the reporter wrote down hacker and pirate, they got the terms backwards. Every other news agency on the planet went, ooh, CNN got it right. They call them hackers. And so they ran with it. And it's been that way ever since. There's a few people on the planet that still come up to me and call me a hacker, and I know that's a great term. I know they're paying me a compliment.
But you're really a pirate.
Not as far as you know. That's what we're going to talk about where race came from here in just a minute. Okay, so I started learning electronics, I started building stuff, and I'm the kid that disassembled everything in the house to figure out how it worked. Literally. I took stuff apart and put it back together again. That's what I did. I've had an insatiable curiosity about anything, and I do mean anything, not just technology, for my entire life. So, we fast forward. I was raised, you get out of high school, you do something for your community or your country. I went to the Air Force, said, I want to fly planes. Guess what they said?
No.
We're full up, don't need any. Really? They didn't even offer me a job as a cook. They're just like, have a nice day.
Not even did.
Really? Did I forget to shower or something? You know, okay. So, a buddy of mine I went to high school with, I had a car, he didn't. He asked me to take him downtown to a job fair. And I grew up in the city of San Antonio, here in Texas. For those of you who don't know where San Antonio is. And so I took him downtown, and he was talking to the guys who were recruiting for the city of San Antonio Police Department. I'm not interested in that at all. My dad was a cop, not interested in law enforcement. So another guy that was a couple of years ahead of me in school is standing at the sheriff's office booth. And I mean, nobody's over there because those guys weren't cool at all. And I walk over and I'm just talking to him because he's not doing anything. He's just killing time. He says, hey, do me a favor. Write your name on here. They're going to send you some stuff in the mail just so it looks like somebody stopped while I was here. Yeah, sure. Put my name and address on there, no problem. A couple of weeks later, this package shows up. I'm getting ready to throw it in the trash, and let's see what it is. Open it up, I look through it. Hey, this is kind of cool. Get to drive cars, wear guns. Hey, this is kind of interesting. And it fulfilled that little checkbox where I was going to do something for my community. And I didn't have anything else I really wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to be a disc jockey, and well, you think being a cop pays bad? No, disc jockey pays even worse. So, started with the sheriff's office, started doing stuff, and life goes on, right? Got married, started a family, it's all good. Then one day I'm in roll call trying to suck down coffee. You will find that coffee is a common theme with me. I drink lots of it. And the captain walks in during roll call and he says, "Can any of you clowns spell the word computer?" And I made a fatal mistake. I raised my hand. Congratulations, you are now the white collar crime unit. The heck is that? So, ATM machines. Everybody knows what an ATM machine is, right? In the early days, nobody knew how to steal these things. Matter of fact, if you look back in the early 80s, you will find where some real knuckleheads strapped an insane amount of dynamite to one in the old Central Park Mall parking lot and literally blew it to pieces. It was a nice little crater where it used to be. The city attorney came on TV that night on the news and said, "We're going to crack down on these ATM things. We're going to appoint a white-collar crime unit." Yeah. I know zip about ATM machines, right? I'm like, what do you want me to do? They actually sent me to the school for the company that makes them, Diebold, the company that made them, at the time. They sent me to school to learn how to repair them. What? How is this going to help people stop stealing them? They said, well, if they blow another one up, you'll at least know what the parts are when you fill out the report. Yeah, okay, whatever. So, from then on, if it looked anything like it plugged into the wall or it might be a computer, ended up in my office. My first, I'll go ahead and call it a forensics lab. Had we called it forensics back then, the medical examiner would have clocked me upside the head and said I was being grandiose and I didn't know what I was talking about. We didn't call it forensics for a real long time. We just called it computers. My first office was a closet, literally. It was a closet that we weren't using, and they said, "There's your lab." And I wouldn't have been able to get one of these tables in there. It was so small. So if I had a computer in there, I usually stood in the open doorway while I worked on it, because that's literally how tiny it was. Okay, so fast forward. If there's a class, I took it. If there's a book, I read it. I basically tried to get into as much as I could. Wasn't making a whole lot of money as a cop. Another theme you'll hear there in the early days. And so I was working part-time for the San Antonio Express and News, big major daily newspaper, right? And in a particular year, debating if I should try this pop quiz question and see if anybody can tell me, what year did the IBM PC come out?
Anybody know?
80,
PC? I remember
82. I'm gonna say 87.
I could be wrong on that one. I think it was 81.
I was gonna say
The original, it ran on a floppy IBM PC.
79, first version.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really early
It
in
was
there.
before Linux.
Yes.
Oh.
So the paper came to me and they said, "Hey, you seem to understand this stuff. Go, here, take the company credit card, go buy one of these IBM PCs. Learn everything you can about it and tell us if this is a technology we need to embrace." Okay, for 6 months, I ate, slept, and breathed IBM PC. I got to the point where I could tell you everything about the inside of that box. And it was a cool machine. I enjoyed it. At the time, the newspaper was buying these insanely expensive dumb terminals. And I do mean dumb. You typed. If you made a mistake, you had to back up. There was no spell check. There was nothing. Basically, you type, hit send, boom. However you had it on the screens, how it ended up in the paper. And they were, like I say, spending a lot of money. We figured out we could buy 2 IBM PCs for what every one of these terminals cost. And they had spell check. Oh my God, the editors thought I was literally a god when I talked them into buying these for the paper. So, we go forward. Paper's happy, they're saving money, the editors are happy, all's well with the world. In 1983, they came to me and said, "You did a great job with the IBM PC. Apple's going to come out with this thing called the Macintosh. We want you to do the exact same thing." Cool. So I get a pre-release, because keep in mind, Apple came out in 1984. I got the first one in 1983.
That was the
Yep, that was the famous Super Bowl commercial.
Super Bowl commercial, the sledgehammer.
If you haven't seen Apple's famous Super Bowl commercial, it's on YouTube. Go find it. It's a very, very cool ad. And it's legendary. It's history. So anyway, I did the exact same thing with the Apple. It's a great box. Oh man, I loved it. But it was so limited in what it could do, and what they wanted it for was for what they call classified ads, for laying the advertising out on the pages. And the guys who did that were using these giant Hewlett-Packard terminals. And I mean, literally, it was the size of a newspaper page. And I said, these guys are used to using this, and you're going to take them down to a 7-inch screen? Not going to happen. You are never going to get them to use this. But keep an eye on the technology, because this could actually turn into something. And we go forward. Okay, so one of my claims to fame is I can honestly say I've been working IBM PC, DOS, Windows since day one. I've been doing Mac since day one. So, when I say I've been doing this forever, I'm not kidding. The precursor to DOS was a very interesting, teeny tiny little operating system called, anybody? CP/M. CP/M. Look it up. I had learned CP/M on what was then known as a Trash 80, a Radio Shack TRS-80 computer. It was a very interesting system. You had to have patience, lots and lots of patience to use this computer when it came out. But one of the things you could get was Digital sold a little daughter board, a little board that plugged in, and it would let you run CP/M on this thing. And so I played with it. So bouncing back and forth here, when the newspaper said, hey, go learn about IBM PC, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And I fired it up, and I see the prompt, and I'm like, I mean, literally, there were no books. What do I do? Oh, DIR, enter. And it answered, and it did exactly what CP/M did. I wonder why. Could it be Bill Gates stole, no, let's say, obtained CP/M and made it DOS 1? Yeah, probably so. You go back and check. Yeah, pretty much. So, hey, I'm off and running. I already know CP/M. I know all the commands. Man, I was off. It was great. I didn't have that much luck with the Apple, unfortunately. Luckily, Apple has always been point and click. But as soon as you go down to what we now consider to be the terminal, or command line in Apple, ooh, yeah, that was not good in the early days. That was beyond ugly. Now it's, of course, Unix core driven in all the operating systems that Apple uses now. But back then, no, you had to use these really obscure Pascal commands, and yeah, I never did do well in Pascal. Okay, so I'm going forward, I'm doing all this stuff. I ended up working on Big Burroughs mainframe computers, so I had to learn to code in COBOL. I learned to code in BASIC. I've basically coded in every version of BASIC you've ever heard of, interpretive and compiled. I've done some C. I've done JPL, I've done NDL. Anybody that actually knows NDL, I will be shocked, because I think there's only maybe one or two of us in the room that are old enough to even remember the machine it ran on.
What machine?
So, I've coded, I've done hardware, yes, I've done networking, yes, I've done systems analysis and design, yes, I've done all of that. Coming forward, still doing law enforcement, by the way. In the early 90s, I realized I'd never been to any real formal training other than vendor training. And I'm thinking, I wonder if I actually know what I think I know. You want to have a yardstick. Because if you're working in kind of a vacuum and you only reach out and touch, certain people, you kind of wonder, I wonder how much I know. So there's an organization known as IASIS. It's the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists. It is the oldest cyber forensic organization for law enforcement around. They started in the early 90s. And I found out about this. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go take their test. I'm going to go take their certification and see if I know what I think I know. So let me describe to you it's called the CFCE, Certified Forensic Computer Expert. Let me describe to you how this certification works.